Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
Welcome back. It's a new year, another new podcast here from Talking Books and Writing and Stuff, talking about curling today. We have John Cullen with us on the line. John Cullen, currently based in Calgary, has some background in my neck of the woods out in Crescent Beach and White Rock, but that's another story. John Cullen, thank you very much for spending some time with us on this, I guess it's kind of a wintry day.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much, Dennis. We are Calgary, not so much a wintry day, actually. We got a Chinook rolling in right now, so it's like plus 15 and sunny randomly in January. So we're going to enjoy that while it lasts, because it won't be for very long.
We've just got the wind blowing in here today, so it must be an offshoot of the same thing.
I would imagine, yes.
So the reason we're with John Cullen, not because he's a nice guy or anything like that, but because he has a book out called Curling Rocks, Chronicles of the Roaring Game. It's by John Cullen. So, John, why write a book about curling? Like, who cares?
Well, I like that you asked the question in the nice way first, and then, the mean way second. By the way, who cares about this, actually? No, it's a very fair question. I guess the short answer is that I've been involved in curling for a really long time, almost 30 years. I started playing the game when I was 12 years old, and then ended up playing it pretty competitively. My team peaked at 25 in the world. I lost a couple BC championships to go to the Brier. And then in the last few years, I stepped away from the competitive game, and I've kind of been involved on the media side. And I just am one of those guys. I've always been a voracious reader. I was an English major in school. It was kind of always something in the back of my mind. Maybe I would write a book. Never really had an idea of what it would be about. And there's just never really been a curling book written like this. I think most of the curling books that you see are memoirs or biographies or strategy guides. There hasn't really been anyone who's written a book that's just like a collection of essays about the game that is sort of meant to attract curling fans, but also non-curling fans, and just kind of have a reminder that it is a real sport. People do care about it, despite popular belief, and maybe we could have a book that would sort of represent some of the audience that maybe doesn't get seen, I would say.
Now, talking about writing a book about curling, it's Curling Rocks by John Cullen from Douglas and McIntyre. So how do you pitch a book about curling? How does that process work?
Yeah, it's a great question. The story of my pitching is sort of convoluted and happens over years, actually. I had been pitching a book about the internet. I have a comedy podcast about the internet called Blocked Party, and I had been pitching that book around. And we actually got pretty far with one of America's top literary agents and just kind of couldn't get it across the finish line. And I kind of enjoyed the process. And I said, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe I could write a curling book. And so, I'm good friends with Charlie Demers, prolific Canadian author, has written a bunch of books. His most recent one is called The A Team, which is about Canada. It's the A as an EH team. But anyway, he's been an author for a long time, and I kind of asked him about it, and he brought me to his literary agents, and they kind of passed on it. They said, sports books aren't really our thing. And Charlie said, you know what, I really think this book has a chance, and I'm friends with the people at Douglas and McIntyre. I'll introduce you to them. And this was in 2021, I believe. Yep. So he makes the introduction. I send in I wrote like a 10-page pitch document or whatever. And, they said, yeah, we're interested. We've always kind of liked the idea of a book about curling. And then for whatever reason, it just never kind of came through. And then I made a podcast called Broomgate, a curling scandal. And that came out in May of 2024. And it was very popular. It was the number one podcast in Canada. We won a few awards. And so my name was kind of, floating in the ether. And it was actually Charlie reached out to me and he said, hey, let's repitch this book. You're hot right now. You have the number one podcast in Canada. Let's go back and knock on D&M's door and see if they're interested. So I kind of rejigged the pitch a little bit, sent it back into them, and then within a month I had a book deal, and here we are.
Here we are. And but we've had Charlie Demers on the show before too, so that's
Oh,
great.
great.
Yep. Excuse me, I have to cough. Cough. There, that's the host in the background coughing. Excuse me. Oh, boy. Let's see now. What was the writing process like then for the book, for Curling Rocks? I know you start off, actually, let's backtrack. You start off with an interesting anecdote about a bunch of big, tough NFL guys who think curling is a piece of cake and they find out it isn't.
Yes.
Wow.
That story is in there. It is pretty interesting. I think that kind of was Charlie's idea. We were actually editing the book, and I was in Nashville for the Grand Slam of Curling's All-Star game, and it was the first one they had kind of ever done. And I told Charlie about, these NFL players are hanging around, and he kind of went, wait, what? What are you talking about? Wait a minute. And so that kind of became the introduction of the book. But as far as the writing process goes, it was actually super quick. So Broomgate comes out in May, and then I think I repitched the book probably in August. And then Douglas and McIntyre got back to me with the offer in September, and they said, look, there's really only 2 times books get released. Books get released in the spring for summer reading, and they get released in the fall for Christmas purchasing. Obviously, this is a winter sport. This book feels tailor-made for the fall. We're already in September when they're saying this to me. Oh, so they're like, sorry?
Yeah. I said, oh boy, it's September and you want to get it released in October.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously that wasn't going to happen, but they said, if you want to get this released next October, you probably have to have the book done by March. Do you think you could have the book done by March? And I already had a couple chapters written. I had a curling newsletter that I was borrowing some ideas from for chapters. I had written a couple sample chapters. So I probably had about 10,000 words already, and they wanted 60,000. And so, I said, I don't know. I've never written a book before. That seems like a tight deadline to me, but I'll try to get it done. And they said, well, you either get it done by March or we're waiting 18 months to release it. And I said, well, I don't like the sound of that. So, so it was very tight. I wrote basically 60,000 words in 6 months and got it done by March. And then it came out in October of 2025. So, the writing process was very compressed.
So who do you think, what's your audience for the book? Who do you think should be reading this book other than everybody?
Well, of course, everybody, yeah. I think it's definitely for curling fans. And again, I think there is an underserved part of the curling fan population. I think there are younger people who are really into the game. I think there are casual curlers who like to play. Maybe they don't watch the pro game as much, but they enjoy playing it. And I just think there's like a subset of that audience that, as I said, hasn't really had a curling book sort of directed at them. So that was kind of, the main thing was I was looking at a curling audience, but everything I ever do in curling, like with Broomgate and other podcasts and stuff I've done, is I want to appeal to non-curlers. I love the sport. I want the sport to grow and get bigger. And so I also really wrote the book in mind because I do have a following. I talked about I have a somewhat successful comedy podcast. I'm also a stand-up comedian. I have a following outside of curling of people who like me and I thought would potentially buy this book. And so I also had them in mind. I wanted it to be funny. I wanted it to be accessible. There was a part of me that was like, I want to bring you into my world. I want to bring you into the curling world and just show you how cool and fun and interesting this game is. Because I think there is this sense that curling is sort of boring and no one cares about it. So I would say it's definitely, if you are a curling fan, you will love this book. But if you're not and you know nothing about curling, I also wrote it in a way that you can enjoy it. And I've heard from non-curlers already who have read it and finished it and said that they really enjoyed it, even as not a curling fan. And that's really brought me a lot of joy.
And the book is Curling Rocks by John Cullen. It's Chronicles of the Roaring Game. John, what is it you think people do not get about curling?
I think they don't get the drama that's involved, the tension. I think one thing that makes curling really special is the dramatics, and I think we talk about drama in other sports, and curling's is just, there's so much there. It's not just on the ice. There's tons of interpersonal relationships. Like, curlers make their own teams. There's no GMs. There's no owners. It's all interpersonal dynamics. It's such an interesting sport that way. But then, I think just the game itself, I think it's so tense. Like, you think of, let's say, like a buzzer beater in basketball, right? Like, a lot of people would say that's one of the most exciting things in sports. A guy hits a buzzer beater for a team to win the game. Okay, well, a guy throws up a buzzer beater and it goes in the basket in 2 seconds, maybe?
Yeah.
Curling, if a skip has to make a shot to win, they've got to call the shot. They've got to slide down the ice. The rock takes between 7 and 17 seconds to travel down the ice. Like, we're talking minutes to just sit in this drama and this tension, and it's unlike any other sport, and I think that's really something that people miss, is that the sport, I know that people think it's boring and they think it's slow moving, and in some ways it is, but there are just these moments of drama that people miss. They don't quite get just how intense the game is, and I think that's why it gets a lot of people's attention during the Olympics, because they turn it on and they go, oh my gosh, there's real stakes here. This is crazy.
And I think that the introduction of the overhead camera for television,
that helped for sure.
That's what got me kind of hooked on watching curling. I didn't even pay attention till I'm at my mother's place one day and she had curling on, and I said, oh my gosh, that's what's going to happen. Oh, I see. This guy has to put this round thing between those two other things and hope that this other round thing doesn't get in the way, and I don't know how they do it. So...
Yeah, exactly. It's like poker too, right? It's like as soon as they figured out how to show you what cards everybody had, it got way more interesting.
Yeah.
And curling, it's the overhead camera, and also all the players are mic'd up too. So it's very, you're hearing what the players are saying in real time. You're hearing the strategy discussions, and I think that's totally unique to our sport, and also makes it very engaging to watch.
Now, years ago, there was a movie, Men with Brooms. You familiar with that?
I am, yes.
Okay, so did you like that?
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, I think for a Canadian production and a movie about curling, I thought it was pretty good. There's a new movie coming out about curling this fall. They're making right now a movie about John Schuster's 2018 USA gold medal win. It was like an improbable gold medal win at the Olympics in 2018, and they're making a Hollywood movie about it. So soon, I hopefully it's good, and I won't have to talk about 2004's Men with Brooms anymore.
So there's new variations going on now with mixed teams and 2-on-2. You got any comments on those kind of new switcheroos that are happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think mixed doubles has been great for the game. It got in the Olympics in 2018, so now we have 3 disciplines at the Olympics: men's, women's, and mixed doubles. It's a much faster game, so the teams only throw 5 stones per end. The time on the clock, like the time they have to play the game, is very limited. It's a really short window, so that things are happening all the time. The way the rules are designed, there's kind of tons of rocks in play. It's really good to watch. I very much enjoy the mixed doubles game, and I think that's also, we try to get people engaged with curling during the Olympics, and mixed doubles runs, actually, it starts before the Olympics themselves start. So the mixed doubles will start on February 2nd, and the Olympics themselves start on February 4th. So it's a way of getting people watching curling before it's kind of the first event that happens at the Olympics. And yeah, I like it. I think it's a really exciting addition to the game.
And of course, there's was it the Norwegian guys who came out with those interesting costumes a while back?
They had the pants in 2010, yes. Yeah, a lot of people still ask me about that. That was 16 years ago, and I still get people say, "Oh, you curl. I remember those guys with the pants." So, yeah, it was. I mean, it was quite a sensation in 2010. They were one of the stories of the Vancouver Olympics. I know that I was at the gold medal game that Norway was in against Canada. The King of Norway was in attendance. They had really, kind of got a ton of attention for that, and yeah, it was fun. You know, they were a really fun team. I felt like the pants sort of matched their personality, and that's the other thing with curling. I think there's tons of great personalities in the game, and again, you really get a chance to know them because they're mic'd up throughout the game, and they're very accessible. Curlers are more accessible than any athletes I've ever been around, and I think that really adds to what is appealing about the game.
And now, is it still mainly, though, a Northern Hemisphere sport?
It is for sure. It is for sure. That's changing a little bit. I think World Curling is up to 80-something member countries now. I think we were talking about mixed doubles earlier. One of the interesting things about mixed doubles is, as its name implies, you only need two people to play it, right? So where a country, a sporting federation of a country might look at four-person curling and say, okay, well, geez, we got to get four people, plus we got to get an alternate, plus we got to get a coach. We're going to have to build almost like an infrastructure to support this team. And so it has typically been a bit of a harder sport to break through in because of that. But with mixed doubles, you only need two people. I mean, if you have two dedicated people, you can make a real run. And so we have seen teams outside of the Northern Hemisphere start to emerge. They're not at the stage yet where they're having success on the world stage, but we're seeing teams like Mexico, Nigeria, Kenya, Guyana, Philippines, countries you would not think would have a shot at the Worlds. And then Australia and New Zealand, they've been part of the World Curling Program for probably the last 20 years or so. They've been at multiple World Championships between those two countries. So, yeah, I think we're getting to a place in curling now where there is more opportunity than ever, and we are seeing some nations that we wouldn't normally think are curling countries starting to actually build a program, which is, that's really exciting.
John Cullen is with us. Curling Rocks is the book, available out now, of course. You have a chapter or section in the book where you talk about all-star curlers, your favorites, but it's kind of a different way of doing things. It's in alphabetical sort of order. Can you give us a little rundown on that?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think it's, I'm a guy who's always loved I've always loved the barroom debate, right? You're just at the bar, you're having a couple drinks with your buddies, and some stupid sports question comes up. Oh, if I trained for a year and all I did every day for a year was train, could I hit a home run off of a major league pitcher? Things like that. I just love that kind of barroom debate. And so it was actually on Twitter, it somehow came up, and I got into a debate with some of my followers about if every curler on the team had to have the same first name, what would be the best team? And I think curling is, as you said, a very Northern Hemisphere sport. And again, and that's to its detriment, I think, in some ways. But it's a very Caucasian sport, and so you get a lot of biblical names playing the game. So you can make these all-star teams of players who have all had the same first name that are really, really good. And so it was just sort of this fun thought exercise that started on Twitter, and then I wrote about it on my newsletter, and then I expanded it for the book, and it was just a fun way of thinking about the game. And again, I think, curling we don't have those kind of barroom debates that you might have in other sports, and so I think that was part of what I wanted to do with the book, and that sort of inspired that chapter.
Yeah, we've got the Scotts, the Michaels, the Johns, the Brads, and good people like that. Even I know some of those names. Of course, on a we lost Colleen Jones a while back, and so she was always a great curler right from the get-go. I think she was one of the highlights of the sport for around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Was a very sad loss for the community. I think it was sudden for a lot of people. She had cancer, had a very aggressive form of cancer, and didn't tell anybody. So I think, I knew, and people who were close to the game were aware of what was going on, but the general public had no idea that she was even sick. So yeah. I think it sort of came as a surprise. And yeah, she was really, as you said, one of the best to ever play. She won 6 Scotties championships, won 4 in a row, which only 2 other skips have done. And yeah, she was also, and then this came out a lot, in the wake of her passing, but also just a great person. I was fortunate enough to, get to spend a little bit of time with her over the last few years. And you really can't find anyone to have a bad word to say about her. Just a really, really great person who loved curling. I think that was evident, stayed in the game right until her passing. She coached her son. She was at last year's Brier. She came to the All-Star game in Nashville, which was in April, and she was quite sick, but, wanted to have sort of one more fun event with all her friends in the curling world. And so, yeah, it was a profound loss for us. Definitely too young. She was 65. So, she had a lot more to give the sport and to give life. And it's really unfortunate, but, yeah, she'll be remembered forever as one of the best to ever play.
Thank you. That's John Cullen, Curling Rocks. One quick question before we go. Is it true that the curling rocks only come from one place in the world?
That is true. Yeah, that is true. There's and it's like an island off the coast of Scotland. So how they figured out that that's where all the curling rocks should come from, I have no idea. But yeah, it's called Ailsa Craig. It's an isle off the coast of Scotland. It's a granite quarry, basically. Essentially, like, no one lives on the island. It's essentially just the island is like one giant rock quarry. And yeah, because the curling stones are made of 42 pounds of granite and you want some form of consistency, they've kind of decided that this is the only spot that the rocks can and should come from. And so, yeah, that's, no matter where you go, from the smallest of small town curling clubs to the Brier, the Scotties, the Olympics, all the rocks are coming from the very same place. Pretty crazy.
And the best book about curling is Curling Rocks by John Cullen, so get out there and get it right now. John, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks so much, Dennis. Thanks for having me.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. You can find Talking Books and Stuff anywhere you get your podcasts. Over 300 episodes await you.